That's right. You stabbed him. I screamed, I did. Didn't help it. Let's press him on that.
Hold it!
He stabbed him, you say, and you were sitting up on the roof deck, were you? Yes. That's right, sir. I was up on the roof seats. I remember seeing the little gent sitting next to the fellow that was stabbed. I've been thinking about a new hat design, you see. So I was just gazing absently-mindedly around. But then I happened to look down through the skylight. It was sticking right out from his belly. That huge, great knife. A grim sight indeed. That didn't help me at all. Oh no, The jury looked like they're even more convinced my client did it than they were before. Like, you say that, but it's like... He didn't see the person get stabbed, just that the knife was there. That's what I got from that. It appears to have made everyone more dubious that Mr. McGilded is telling the truth. If only we had some evidence to counter their suspicions. Mr. First? Oh, yes, sir? Is this the knife you saw? Oh, good grief. Yes, that's it. The very one, sir. Is that? Yes, counsel. This is the blade that was driven into the victim's belly like a stake through the heart. Or like a knife to the belly. That is a blade of considerable size, counsel. It is. And furthermore, the scabbard is emblazoned prominently with a certain initial. The letter M, which seems oddly familiar. I mean, that could be Moriarty. It would make sense. Oh, please, no. M for Magnus, perhaps, or McGilded, possibly. Take your pick. It seems this particular big name in London made a magnificent mistake.
Objection!
Now it's back to that. But there are M's everywhere. Like, yes. Like in Mason.
Objection!
Come on. This blade is far too extravagant for a poor brickmaker to have owned. No, this weapon of murder almost certainly belongs to the accused. Not conclusive, but certainly compelling, counsel. The murder weapon has been entered into the court record. A largish knife that was found lodged in the victim's abdomen. Its quality and fancy ornamentation suggest it must be quite valuable. My lord, if you'll forgive the interruption. Ah, juror number 2. Go on. Mr. McGilded is a pillar of society and a gentleman's word should be sacrosanct. However, those of us in service know we must accept hard truths. What? Wait, what are you going to do? Dispose of the rubbish. Oh, come on. No. I don't wish to cause offense, but I do like to eradicate all traces of filth and grime. I have painstakingly typed every word uttered here today and cross-referenced all the facts. As such, I am now in a position to draw the only logical conclusion. What? Are we gonna get screwed by that? Like, am I not meant to be pressing on these? Not again. That's 4 out of 6 jury members who've proposed a guilty verdict. There are only 2 left. We've had it. Every time I press these witnesses for more information, I just make the situation worse. Nevertheless, what we need more than anything at the moment is more information. We're still very much in the dark. But I just have to keep pressing the witnesses, knowing that more sparks may well fly. We mustn't give up hope that we'll uncover something that will give us a way to fight back. But... alright. I'll keep trying. Can't give up. Just need to keep calm and listen to the witnesses' statements again. gonna keep going. As soon as I heard the scream, I stopped my bus. And then I saw it too.
Hold it!
Got it. What exactly did you see? Oh, well, sir, that would be the passenger, sir. Yes, collapsed on the floor. He was. And by the passenger, obviously you are referring to the victim, Mr. Mason, the bricklayer. And the other passenger had the knife in his hand, like this. By the other passenger, obviously you are referring to the accused, Mr. Magnus McGilded. And plunged it down like this, stabbing the other passenger in the belly. But wouldn't it have happened before that? Like this, the timing's all off here. What? My lord, I wish to speak. Uh-oh. Yes, juror number 5, do I take it that you were as the master of the London Guild of Coachmen? The idea of a murder being committed in one of the city's carriages is utterly abhorrent to me. It wouldn't be right to make a decision before hearing all the facts, though, I said to myself. But I've heard enough now. The horse has bolted, as they say. No, please, just keep it up. Gee up now, Silver Blaze. The finish is in sight. Beppo is a long-standing member of the guild, and I trust what the man says. Oh, thank you, sir. You're too kind, sir. This is too unkind, sir. Which now means the 5 jurors agree to condemn this man. Madam Juror number 6. Yes, dear? What can I do for you? You have heard the testimonies of the witnesses in the stand. Oh, yes, I certainly have. Still got my hearing, you know. Then pray tell why you yet to pronounce your leaning. Well, dear, the thing is, I'm a creature of habit, me. I always go to the park at around this time of day and sit on a nice bench and get on with my knitting. And there's a lovely little park just near where I live. McGilded Park, it's called. The gentleman donated it to the city, you know. Put a smile on Londoners' faces, he said. I can't imagine such a fine young gentleman would have it in him to take another man's life. He's always doing wonderful things for the city. That's right. Mother, may we go to the McGilded Public Library later and borrow some more books? How many Londoners live with their heads in the clouds? Do you people not know what kind of a man Magnus McGilded really is? What kind of a man he is? The philanthropist Magnus McGilded has enough wealth to purchase the entire city he claims to value so highly. And? But where did all that wealth come from? Your client is a Shylock, sir, and one with the very darkest of souls. What? Stone the crows. McGilded lends money at extortionate rates of interest so his victims have no hope of repaying him. When they default, he takes possession of everything they own. He is a vulture that preys on the weak. I've never heard any mention of that before. Your faculties haven't deserted you, I'm sure, madam. So, has this thought not crossed your mind? Would a man wealthy enough to buy London in its entirety not have a carriage of his own? What possible reason could this man have had to make use of a public omnibus service? You're not saying that the victim, a poor brickmaker, had next to nothing to his name, save considerable financial liability. It will come as no surprise that his creditor was the accused, Magnus McGilded. But let it also be known that the very day Mr. Mason was killed was the final repayment date for his debt. Good gracious. The brickmaker was destitute. He had lost his house. He had not a shilling with which to repay his debts. And in the end, this pitiful soul had the very last thing he owned taken from him. His life. By the merciless philanthropist pretender Magnus McGilded. I don't believe it.
Hold it!
If I might add something briefly, Miss Susato? You claim that the victim had been lent money by Mr. McGilded. But where is the evidence to support your claim? Like, where'd the drink come from? Has that always been there? I've not noticed it? I could have gobbled it like that. Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice in a court of law. Aha, there it is. Lord Van Zyke's hallowed chalice. How can this be considered acceptable? But I find myself in unexpectedly good humor. I had heard ladies from the Far East could show great courage, but I did not expect to experience it myself. Ah, as judicial assistant to the defense, I am simply doing my job. What a pity that your display of courage is in vain. This is the debtor's, yes, ledger, which details all monies loaned by the accused. You will find the victim's name clearly recorded inside. Oh. Allow me to present this ledger as evidence. And pray forgive this discourtesy of raising my chalice in a toast to the enigmatic East at the same time. A marvelous toast, Counsel. I will gladly accept this new evidence. The debtor's ledger has been entered into the court record. Great. Ah yes, 20 guineas. The victim owed a considerable sum. And the accused made quite certain he had ample recompense. Well, it would seem I've had the wool pulled over my eyes. Regrettably, madam, that is the modus operandi of the accused. And it's such a pretty little park, too. What a scoundrel. Great. Still. Maybe it's all for the best. Wait a minute. Let's think about this a little more, but I don't stand for nonsense. Well, that's bad, right? That was it. The last juror's decision. What is in the book? According to this Encyclopedia of British Law, when all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the presiding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. That's what it says here. The final verdict? It's over then. Oh. There's a footnote though. A footnote? However, the defense. All 6 members of the jury are now in agreement in this case. Where's your chalice gone? Like the ball's still there, but where's the chalice? Allow me to convey my respect for your swift and righteous decision. According to the laws of this country, I will now conclude the trial by delivering my final verdict. I trust there are no objections. But what's in the book? What's however? What's the footnote? Miss Susato, just tell me one thing. Oh, yes? You're in the middle of saying something before. The footnote in your Encyclopedia of British Law. However, the defense. What did it say next? Oh, yes, of course. One moment. When all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the presiding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. Then, the footnote says, however, the defense has the right to demand a summation examination of the jurors at this point. A summation examination.
Objection!
A summation examination? From which century has the term you have there been resurrected? Ah. Judging from the binding, I would say the book is at least 50 years old. Any modern text on British law wouldn't even give such an antiquated procedure a mention. It's a relic, long forgotten, and certainly no longer practiced. But it is still law, isn't it? So, you're out of luck. Oh. What even is it, Miss Susato? This so-called summation examination. Oh, one moment, and I'll read about it. You would demand the right to a procedure before you even understand what it entails? Typical Nipponese. Alright, Mr. Naruhodo, I think I understand. It seems that under this procedure we would be able to appeal to the members of the jury. To do what, exactly? Appeal to them to change their leaning and reverse their decisions. It says here that if successful, the proceedings of the trial must be resumed. Make them reverse their decisions? Yes, in times gone by, baristas would use a summation examination to attempt to influence the jury's decision. But that procedure became something of a formality with no practical benefit, really. So it rather fell out of use. I wonder why. Because it was devoid of purpose. Changing just one member of the jury's mind would be hard enough, let alone several. No self-respecting defense barrister would even assert his right to try in this day and age. We got to. Still, I don't see any mention of the procedure actually being formally revoked. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that although it may be antiquated and largely forgotten, it isn't yet extinct. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Go for it. Summation examination, our last possible option. Do we assert our right to carry it out or admit defeat? Well, we're not going to admit defeat, are we? The defense wishes to assert its right to a summation examination, my lord.
Objection!
London is the capital city of the most powerful nation on earth. We have a duty to the world to exemplify the very highest standards of judicial procedure. Summation examinations are an embarrassment that should remain buried.
Objection!
But if it's our right, it's our right. I believe it could prove vital in this trial. The defense's petition is perfectly valid. The court will proceed with the summation examination. This is madness. Foreman, are you and the remainder of the jury ready? I'm not, there was no mention of this in the letter I received, you see, so, all members of the jury will be asked to explain on what grounds they have reached their decision. On what grounds? You must all justify your decisions and explain why you believe the defendant to be guilty. Well, my lord, rather putting us on the spot. This is most irregular. No mention was made of this before. I don't really hold with all this justifying lark. Seems to have thrown the jurors off. Seems none of them have experienced this before. Alright then, summation examination. A defense procedure no practicing lawyer has attempted for years, is it? Well, just maybe. It might be the opportunity we've been looking for to turn this trial around. So be it then. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court hereby calls upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant Magnus McGilded guilty of this most serious crime. Oh my. Judicial findings. The jurors' contentions. There was no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it has to have been him. I trust the driver. He has an excellent memory, it seems. 4 passengers, with fares totaling 20 pence. He stuck the chap next to him just like this. Brazen, I must say, absolutely brazen. I have simply typed and collated all the statements made thus far and drawn the logical conclusions. You can trust the guild. Fair fares is our motto. We haven't raised prices above 4 pence for years. 4 pence. The scoundrel stabbing the poor man on the floor, it beggars belief. Wait, that was it? That was the reason? I'm starting to wish I hadn't pushed for this now. Some of the jurors don't seem to have wonderfully formed arguments though, do they? Well, let's see what we can do. Need to get these 6 people to change their minds. I'll have to throw everything I can at them and use some very persuasive language. Just a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. According to my book, it's not quite how it works. Oh? Thought I was going to have to thaw their icy minds with some heart-warming rhetoric about the defendant. Unfortunately, once the jurors have decided the defendant is guilty, they're unlikely to heed our court anything the defense says. But then reach their conclusions by their own reasonings, you see. Your pleas will sound like excuses. In fact, it could recoil on you. The more you try to persuade them, the more entrenched they may become. Then what on earth am I supposed to do? Oh dear, I'm just citing what I've read about British law, Mr. Naruhodo. Right, sorry. Do you have any idea how to make this work, then? Well, from what I can understand, the key to this procedure is using the jurors' own words to make your arguments. What do you mean? Well, the 6 members of the jury are randomly selected members of the public. They may appear to present a united front, but the truth is, they're complete strangers who just happen to find themselves here in the courtroom together. And that's the way to break them down, you mean? Yes, exactly. We must listen very carefully to what each member of the jury says, and see if we can identify any contradictory statements. If we can, we then contrast the statements and pit the corresponding jurors against each other. I see. So it's contradictions in what 2 or more jurors say that we're looking for. In a way, then, this is similar to a regular cross-examination. Oh, yes, I suppose you're right. Find contradictions in their statements and pit the jurors against one another to break them down. Alright, I might be able to pull this off. No, that's not right. I have to pull this off. Can we start proceedings, counsel? I would ask you to take the stand for this. I'm expecting a clear and concise rebuttal. Yes, my lord. Jury examination. The defense's rebuttal. There was no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it has to have been him. Okay. I trust the driver. He has an excellent memory, it seems. 4 passengers with fares totaling 20 pence. He stuck the chap next to him just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolutely brazen. I have simply typed and collated all the statements made thus far and drawn the logical conclusion. I don't think we can fight against you, really, then, can we? You can trust the guild. Fair fares is our motto. We haven't raised prices above 4 pence for years. So, if you haven't raised them against... yeah, trust the driver. He has an excellent memory, it seems. 4 passengers with fares totaling 20 pence. So 20 does not match up. You can trust the guild. Fares Fair fare is our motto. We haven't raised our prices above 4 pence for years. Now 4 times 4 is not 20. I mean, that should be obvious, right? It's 16. So... you...
Objection!
Let's see what happens here, then. Those two statements clearly contradict each other. They do? Explain yourself, counsel. Me? Oh dear, what have I said? I swear on Silver Blaze's mane and name, I haven't the first idea what you're talking about. According to the group testimony we've heard so far, there were 4 passengers on the omnibus on the night in question. And according to the coachman, Mr. Beppo, he took 20 pence in fares. Quite right. I have those precise details typed neatly here in front of me. Yeah, so if it's 20 pence, and there's 4 passengers, that's 16. So if there is another 4 pence, that means there was someone else there. And juror number 5 also told us the following. The fare for the omnibus is always 4 pence. And that it is a fair and convenient single price, just the way London's carriages should be operated. But that doesn't add up at all, literally. In fact, it leaves a glaring discrepancy in the facts. Why, man, why? 4 passengers paying 4 pence each, if you do the multiplication. Ah, it would be 16 pence. Exactly. As I said, it doesn't add up. The figures are different. By 4 pence, in fact. Or precisely 1 person's fare. 1 person's fare? Yes, in other words, on the omnibus that night. It's distinctly possible. There was another passenger we've heard nothing about. Good gracious. Yep. This can't be right. Coachmen of the Guild are good, honest men, one and all. Trustworthiness is our watchword. The figures your coachman claims most certainly do not add up. Your watchword, good sir, is a fallacy. I beg your pardon. Mr. Guildmaster, I think you ought to consider that if this trial were to end now, the news will surely spread all over London. The news that one of your coachmen tried to hide the fact that he lets nefarious characters ride his omnibus. Alright then, how do I make it so this miserable trial doesn't end, Well, according to my book here, you simply launch a ball of fire onto the innocent side of the set of scales. So now hold your horses there, coachman. We're all in agreement. Why do you have to go and... Wait till I get my hands on you, Beppo. Oh, this is all very irritating. Begging your pardon, sir, I'm going to do the same. For the love of Mike, not you as well. A penny can be the difference between a smile and a tear, after all. I certainly can't put my trust in someone who doesn't follow my exacting standards in financial matters. But really, I, for one, think it's only proper that we hear from the witnesses again. Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. You did it. If we can manage to change 2 more jurors' minds, we can force the trial to continue. 2 more, actually. There is something else that's bothering me about a couple of their assertions, is there? And that's where you must strike next. So I need to pit 2 more jurors against each other and show there's another contradiction in their assertions. Exactly. You can do it. Well, scales of justice have shifted, but they still weigh heavily on the side of guilt. Counsel, you have the floor again. Continue with your summation examination. I'm changing my leaning to innocent. I should like to hear what the slipshod bookkeeper has to say for himself. He stuck the chap next to him like this, but let's go back to the first one. And there was no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it has to have been him. That contradicts what we just found out. Sort of. He stuck the chap next to him just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolutely brazen. I have simply typed and collated all the statements made thus far and drawn the logical conclusion. Pepper, this trial has to continue so I can get to the bottom of this corruption. Not guilty, I say. The scoundrel stabbing that poor man on the floor. Beggars belief, not on the floor. They stabbed him like that, you know.
Objection!
Those two statements are completely contradictory. But what? Explain, Counsel, post haste. Oh, dearie me. I was only knitting a jumper for my other half. What is all this claptrap? What does contradictory even mean, I ask you? We've heard from more than one witness that they allegedly saw the actual moment when the defendant stabbed the victim. Now, out of curiosity, juror number 3. What? Can't you see I'm busy here? How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim? What sort of motion was it? Huh. Want to test me, do you? Just like this. Stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up. Just like the prim bankers said. Yes, that was Mr. Fairplay's testimony. Quite true. Now then, juror number 6. Oh, is that me, is it? What can I do for you, young man? How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim, madam? Oh, well, dear, as far as I understand it, it was like this. He stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. The coachman said so. Now, don't move. Take a look at these two jurors. He stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up. And he stabbed the poor man after he collapsed on the floor? Well, I never! They're stabbing in totally different directions. What? Bless my stitches. What a muddle. This tells us is there's a strong possibility one of the witnesses isn't telling the truth. Oh. Why? Why the dickens would they lie? I don't know that yet, but what I do know is that if the trial ends at this point, we may never find out, may never know the real truth. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, can you really let that happen in all good conscience? Lies, you say? Oh, dearie me. I can't abide people telling lies. The scales. I don't believe it. Wait. Now hear this, my fellow jurors. I warn you, you cannot listen to this man. Look at him. His black suit. He's clearly some devious Eastern sorcerer using magic on all of us. What? If I could use magic, do you really think I'd be putting myself through all this? Answer me this, Dark Jinx. Huh? Me? What exactly is the problem? What of it if the two witnesses have slightly different recollections of events? What of it? Let's say the Shylock did stab the victim as he was sitting next to him on the omnibus, and this young dandy saw him do it. And now let's say the victim collapsed on the floor and then the Shylock stabbed him again. This old lady saw him do it. Well, what's to say it didn't happen like that, hmm? Are you calling a dandy, sir? Why, I should take this knife to you. Are you calling old? Why, I should take this needle to you. Ugh, they're ready to kill each other now. But could the foreman of the jury be right? Did the two witnesses see two different moments of the same crime? Well, I'm obviously going to say it's out of the question, aren't I? Because they weren't there. Unfortunately, Mr. Foreman. What is it, you dark jinx? Come on, out with it. What you're suggesting is impossible. It's out of the question. We're gonna have to prove it, aren't we? I mean, the fact is, like, he's still sat up. So that would be a good way of proving it, wouldn't it? Like, that's the only thing I can think of right now. Single stab wound. Yeah, that's gonna be a single stab wound. Still think that would be enough. Like, the thing, the knife is still there. It's just like, yeah. So I think that's probably the stronger thing, but it's sort of like, that could possibly prove it as well. I think. What you're suggesting is impossible. It's out of the question. Ding. What? What are you talking about, man? How can you possibly say that? You do realize that I'm only doing my job? As foreman of the jury, I have a responsibility to steer everyone in the right direction. So where's your evidence, Matt? There you go. That's what we want to see. I say the two witnesses saw two different moments of the same crime. If you say that's out of the question, show me some proof. It's only one stab wound. Looks like the only way I'm going to convince him is to present him with something he can't dismiss. Some irrefutable hard evidence. As you wish. What? I'll give you your proof. It's out of the question that the two witnesses saw two different moments of the same crime, as proven by one stab wound.
Take that!
This is the victim's autopsy report. According to what's written here, Mr. Mason was stabbed in the abdomen. Only once. Huh? Only once? It's quite simple. The victim was stabbed precisely one time. Which means the witness can't possibly have seen it happen two different times. Alright, I concede defeat. Wait, that means... What jurors are now leaning to not guilty? We've done it, Mr. Naruhodo. We've won. What, the whole trial? Like, I'd be very sure. What are you playing at, you dandy fool? Shut your trap, sir. No one deceives me. But we had a consensus. I said shut your gaff trap. I know a lie when I see one. And if the chap even dares to cross the threshold of my shop, I'll take you to this razor-sharp blade and shave every last hair off his head. Please tell me he's a barber. Well, in a quite remarkable turn of events, the defense's summation examination has flipped the balance of the scales of justice. The jurors now stand at 2 for guilty and 4 for not guilty. Accordingly, there is no longer a large enough majority among the jury for me to adjudicate, and the trial must continue. I hereby ask the defense, prosecution, and witnesses to return to their places, and I call upon all of you to continue to pursue the truth. So, Lord Van Zykes, continue to substantiate the case for the prosecution, if you please. Oh, my. Having savoured the rich aroma of the carmine contents of this hallowed chalice, it may seem crash to crush it to dust. Pray forgive the discourtesy. Lord Van Zykes? Is it cold in here, or is it just me? As your antiquated term no doubt says, the prosecution may not speak during a summation examination. So I honoured a deathly silence and listened to the charade. It seems I overestimated the intelligence of the jury. Ding, we get it. Well, no matter. There is nothing so hard to prove as a self-evident truth, it would seem. No, why else would we grace the courtroom with our presence after all? So, let us proceed to the next round of battle. Bring forth the witnesses once more. Oh my. Witnesses, I trust you heard the summation examination we have just had to endure. Oh, yes, sir, that I did, sir. Of course I heard it. Oh, yes, I heard it. You, sir, on the end, the coachman. I believe it's Beppo? Yes, sir, my lord, sir. It transpires that in your previous testimony, you were attempting to veil the presence of a fifth passenger on your omnibus. You will be found guilty of perjury. You are advised to bear that in mind, sir. Oh, mio Dio. Now then, witnesses, hereby call on you to testify before the court again. You'll explain various misgivings brought to our attention by the defense's summation examination.